Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. And I want to welcome everybody to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. So if you're Black and intelligent, you are welcome. If you're not Black and intelligent, then you can please leave the building right now. Today, I have Jeff Lightsey Jr. from Boss Sports. I call him Little Steven.
Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School.
Sorry, guys. Let me turn this off. Sorry about that. I'm echoing now. Jeff Lightsey Jr. Is a sports analyst. He knows a lot about what's happening in the world of sports, and he's going to break some stuff down. I wanted to talk about what happened with Dak Prescott, the poor guy, quarterback for the Cowboys, who went down in a terrible, terrible injury. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you saw what happened with Dak. It was really, really sad to watch, and I'm really curious, about what's going on, financially for him and his family, stuff like that. So before I begin, I want to ask you about number one, put your hashtag B1 in the chat if you're Black first. Number two, hit the thumbs up button. And number three, I want to ask my brother Jeff, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good. How about yourself, Dr. Boyce?
I'm doing good. I saw this thing with Dak, and it really made me sad. It was I was rooting for the brother. I saw where he was negotiating with Jerry Jones, who was an interesting guy. You either love him or hate him. I'm kind of a Cowboys fan, so I've been kind of mad at him for about 25 years because they need to to win some games. But, I saw what happened with Dak. He was in a contentious negotiation last year with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. And it got to where the numbers were pretty big. And it turned out that they didn't make a deal. And so I saw the injury with Dak, which was kind of a worst nightmare for a lot of people because, he was taking a big chance by taking that 1-year situation. Can you kind of brief for everybody who's new to the situation, tell them about what happened today and why everybody's talking about Dak Prescott?
So for those who weren't watching the game, basically Dak Prescott was playing, him and the Dallas Cowboys playing the New York Giants. He was scrambling. He did the design quarterback run. He was scrambling, just the basic tackle, just like he was being tackled, brought to the ground. And then when the camera showed him, he was calling for the training staff because his ankle had been broken. Dak Prescott had broke his ankle just on a basic routine play, and it was so unfortunate. But the bigger thing with a lot of people who know football and know contracts and know what's been happening with Dak, and the Cowboys understood that Dak was playing under a franchise tag, right? So a franchise tag, like you kind of explained, is just a 1-year deal. Dak got paid upwards of $31 million for 1 year. But as of right now, he doesn't have a team. He doesn't have a contract for next season. And so the biggest reason why people in the NFL or players in the NFL hate the franchise tag is because nothing is guaranteed past said season that you're on the tag. And so with Dak, and like you said, he was playing for a contract. We're talking about, 150, 160 million dollars on the line. What he was going out there trying to earn, which he felt like he had already earned, but was trying to, I guess, re-earn something. And now that could be in jeopardy along with his career in the future, his future salary, his career, everything is now on the line because he was injured on a routine play and he doesn't have a contract for next season. So that is what's happening. Him and Jerry Jones, Jerry and Stephen Jones too, who really runs the football, the business side of things. Jerry Jones is the figurehead, but his son Stephen kind of really runs everything. They were arguing over, or basically in these contract negotiations over last season, trying to get a number as far as guaranteed money, overall value of the deal in years, right? Years, that was really the big sticking point. Dak wanted between $37 and $40 million a year, and he only wanted a 4-year deal so he could get another chance to get another deal between $37 and $40 million a year 4 years from now. The Cowboys wanted Dak under a 5-year deal and wanted him closer to the between the $33 and $35 million a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but $2 or $3 million makes a difference. I don't know. Like, it sounds like it makes a difference to me, especially over amount of time. So that was the big sticking point on why they weren't able to get a deal done over this past offseason. And now with Dak's injury, most people don't get paid big money coming off an injury. Like, that's just not how NFL works, because we don't know if you're going to be the same player post said injury. So you don't get $150, $160 million deals after you have a season-ending injury in week 5. It just doesn't happen in the NFL. So that's why this is so major, because now the leverage and the power has shifted in the direction of the Cowboys when Dak was having arguably his best season through 5 games.
Mm. Everybody, I'm speaking with Jeff Licey Jr. from Ball Sports, and the URL is theballsportsnetwork.com if you want to hear sports from a brother's perspective. Jeff is in there every single day. Hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it. Please hit the thumbs up button. We're talking about Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys and his recent injury. He had a really ugly ankle injury, which instantly when I heard about it, it made me think about what my nightmare was when he was going through this negotiation and talking about, guarantees versus, year by year situations. Football's a dangerous sport, and I thought about, what if he does get injured? What are his protections? And so let me just make sure I'm clear on this. So you're saying that the Cowboys were ready to offer him 5 years, $35 million, basically, from what you just said, right?
Yes, essentially, yes.
So Dak wanted 4 years, $40 million, or 38 or 40.
Yeah, but the number, what Deshaun Watson got, that 4-year, 160, is kind of what Dak won, because it's less years. It gives him another chance in his pseudo prime or whatever to get another big $150, $160 million deal. And the Cowboys are like, no, we want an extra year out of you. And so that's kind of in a few less million off the top so we can pay these other guys. So that's kind of how it was working. Okay,
so they were offering him $35 million, 5 years. He wanted Deshaun Watson money, which basically was 4 years at 160, which was $40 million a year.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but it makes me sad in the sense that, I think that from a regular person's standpoint, from, in the perspective of people who most likely will never know what it's like to make $40 million a year, I think a lot of people in his family probably said, just take the deal, especially if you're talking about some of that money being guaranteed. Now, out of curiosity, you're an expert on sports, Jeff. You know what's going on with a lot of these contracts. How much of that money would have been guaranteed? Like, what if Dak had said, you know what, I just want to play. Like, let's say he did what a Scottie Pippen did. Remember Scottie? People clown Scottie because Scottie took that deal for $18 million for 7 years. Then he got pissed off because he signed the deal. But it's like, but Michael Jordan had a good point. He's like, you signed the contract, you made an agreement, right? But but Scottie did that because he said, you know what, I can't play around with my family's security. The downside scares me more than the upside intrigues me. So I just want to get locked in, and I know I'm a millionaire. I know I'm good. Give me a yes or no in the chat. First off, everybody who's listening, if they'd offered you 5 years, if that was your brother, and they said, look, we're not going to give you 4 years, $40 million, but we'll give you 5 years, $35 million. Yes or no? Would you have taken the deal? Give us a yes or no. And then, Jeff, I want to ask you, in that 5 years, $35 million, do you have any idea how much of that would have been guaranteed? Like maybe if you use Deshaun Watson's contract as a benchmark, how much of that money is guaranteed to Deshaun?
Over $100 million. So
Okay.
Over honestly, it's over 110 of that million would have been guaranteed. Roughly 110, 111, 112, somewhere around there would have been guaranteed.
Wow. So he would have gotten over 100 million guaranteed.
No doubt.
And instead over, the 2-3 million extra per year. He held out, which we're not blaming him, right? I don't think it's a matter of attacking him. Because remember, he did get what did he get this year when he got the franchise?
He got 31.4, I think, was the exact number. 31.4.
Okay. So he got some of the money out, right? And his career's not over. He's going to come back. But that injury was so ugly. I mean, I looked at his ankle. I said, holy shit. It was almost like did you ever see that old Joe Theismann injury by chance? I don't know if
it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Joe Theismann broke his entire leg. And because that was in like the early 80s, late 70s kind of thing, nobody had really seen an injury like that. So it wasn't that bad, but it was because he was viciously ripped down by Lawrence Taylor. Dak was kind of just routine tackle. Like we see this tackle 1,000 times in one game in an NFL game. Just super routine, super basic. It's just the way he landed and the way the guy from the Giants' body landed on his leg or ankle just caused it to turn the wrong way. The way ankle's not supposed to turn, and that's why.
Wow. Well, what's interesting though is I mentioned the Theismann injury, and that was from the Giants. So this was the Dak injuries from the Giants. So that's just a little interesting factoid. But I tell you, man, I think when I saw Dak going through the negotiation, I didn't follow it as closely as somebody like you would, you know, because you're a sports guy. You're really into, I like sports, but you're an analyst, like you're a professional. And I remember seeing Deion Sanders and Stephen A. really barking at each other about whether or not, you know, they're really showing respect to Dak. I remember Stephen A. was like, you need to show respect to him. You need to sign him. Go ahead and pay him his money. And then Michael Irvin was like, no, we love Dak in Dallas. We love Dak in Dallas. We do. And they were going back, you know, and which unfortunately made Michael Irvin kind of look like he looked like a plantation slave, like defending the master, right? Because Jerry Jones ain't gonna be on there arguing.
No, not at all. But he loves him some Jerry Jones.
Yeah, right. But you saw the point, right? Like I remember thinking, I don't think they're disrespecting him by offering him $35 million a year. I think I said, well, that doesn't seem like a bad deal. And he's not a Patrick Mahomes, right? So Patrick Mahomes is on a whole different planet, economically, because that motherfucker can just do shit that nobody else can do. Like I mean, Patrick Mahomes is like, I've never seen somebody who could just run across the field and throw the ball in the other direction, damn near like behind his head like a frisbee, and you know, hit his target. I've never seen anything like Patrick Mahomes. But to that point though, I think Dak. What I like about Dak is that he's such a solid. He seems like such a solid citizen. Yeah, you know, like a quality human being. And you really hated seeing this happen to him, because he did take a risk, and when you take that risk is on you. Because Dallas wasn't required to take a risk. Dallas had to pay him that 1-year franchise money, and now I'm willing to bet you, sadly enough, there are people in the Dallas back office who are saying, "Whoo, I'm glad we didn't sign that deal with him." Because I think that I don't really think that they're even expecting him to ever come back the way he was. I think they're looking at their new situation now. Okay, what can Alex Jones do? Who else can we get? Do you think that they're even gonna really stick with Dak in terms of really believing that he can come back and be their quarterback, especially given that they weren't that great in the first place? Not that it's Dak's fault, but I mean the Cowboys, shit, they suck. They're fucking terrible. What are your thoughts on that?
So that's the thing, like you said, that's why most people are feeling bad about Dak getting hurt, right? Because you have a heart. He's a good guy. He doesn't really do anything controversial. He does what the team says. When they ask him questions, he's like an ultimate leader. He always backs the organization, whether it's the Colin Kaepernick situation or taking the knee during the anthem or anything controversial Jerry Jones might say. He always backs the organization, even if some people think that's sellout move, whatever. Dak does it. Right. So he's the ultimate team player, the ultimate team captain. He doesn't get in trouble in the offseason or whatever. So when you take it, like you said, a gamble, a lot of folks are like, well, that's the game. Football's a violent sport. You know this. Everybody gets hurt in football. Like everybody. There's not one player in the history of football that didn't get hurt. And a lot of them, like 60, 70% of them, have had season-ending injuries at some point of their career, right? Like whether it's Peyton Manning, Tom Brady has, even guys that play mostly non-contact positions. There's no such thing as a non-contact position in football. Everybody gets hit, so everybody gets hurt. So people were like, hey, Dallas gave you $100 million guaranteed. They were offering it. They gave you 5 years. And in some cases, some folks were like you said, Dallas ain't won anything since Dak's been there. They won 2 playoff games since Dak's been there. That's it. No Super Bowls, no conference championships, no conference championships appearances, none of that. So some folks felt like Dak was being greedy. Some folks felt like Dak trying to hold out for a Deshaun Watson type deal or a Patrick Mahomes, not really a type deal, but somewhere in that 40 million. They felt like he was being greedy. So in some cases, whether it's in the Dallas organization or people that don't like Dak or even do not necessarily not have to like Dak, or felt like he was being greedy, they were like, this is what happens when you try to be greedy. This is what happens when you try to overplay your hand. Whether you play, you can overplay your hand in a game of spades or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, make him bluff. Well, he was bluffing. And it turns out, unfortunately for him, he got hurt. And so now in that Dallas organization, like you said, they have all the leverage. They're not offering this man $100 million guaranteed next offseason. It's just not happening. So in that case, what do you have to do? You either have to sign him way below he thought he was going to get, way below his market value, original market value was, whether it's a 1 year, 2 year deal, way below. We're talking about, the $30 million deal for 2 years, but besides 160 for 4 or 130 for 5, we're talking about 30 for 2 maybe, or, 1 for 15 or something like that, because now you have to prove that you're at least 90% of that guy you were. You have to prove you're at least 85% of that guy you were before we could ever pay you. And that's not guaranteed that you're going to be that guy again, because as simple as it put, everybody doesn't bounce back from injuries the same. Now, luckily for Dak, he's not a running back. He's not a cornerback. A guy has to run a lot, play his position. But running is part of his position. Running is part of his game. Running is part of what was going to get him paid $100 million guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So, like in that Dallas organization, there are some people that, have faith in Dak, think he's going to bounce back, be the same guy, maybe even be better. But there are people whose job is to evaluate what we may have to do next. What we may have to move on. And that's why I made a video earlier today about Dak Prescott may have played his final game as a Dallas Cowboy. Like, that is a realistic thing, because there's no way in hell if you're Dallas can't pay him the money he wanted, right? Like, that's out of the question. They can't even almost pay him the money they wanted to pay him. That's almost got to be out of the question. Mm-hmm. So now all they can do is what? Franchise tag him again. Well, if you're Dak Prescott, there's no way in hell you're playing under a franchise tag. You just got hurt under the tag. And so that means, say if, God forbid, knock on wood, you don't get hurt again, but say if you did get hurt again, you don't have a contract anymore. And now you might be out of the league. So Dak has to survey his options and see if there is a team who is willing to pay somewhat near the number that he wanted originally. And there will be somebody out there, because Dak is a good player and he's proven enough for most teams. Most team organizations are just dismantled to play for said organization and get something, get a nice chunk that Dallas may not be willing to pay him, especially if this guy who's coming in for that as Dak's replacement, Andy Dalton, plays like anything. If he wins anything during his time replacing Dak right now. So it is going to be a interesting situation to watch over the next, 10 months, 9 months.
Wow. Well, everybody, do me a favor real quick if you're watching. I'm talking to Jeff Lightsey Jr. from Ball Sports, and we're talking about Dak Prescott and his terrible injury with the Dallas Cowboys, which probably cost him over $100 million. And we've only got a couple more minutes. We're going to talk here. I'm actually going to do a Q&A, a financial Q&A with some students in about 5 minutes. If you guys want to join us, I'll share the link inside the box. But here's the thing I want to first of all, also do me this favor too. If you're watching, please hit the thumbs up button. Everybody right now, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't done it yet, hit the thumbs up button. That helps us in the algorithm to get the video seen by more people. So I'll tell you, I think, with that whole situation, it's just sad all the way around, in that, Dak, to his credit, good or bad, deserves to be commended for being a great team leader, a good model citizen. He went along with the organization. I think a lot of people respected him for that. But then, but now obviously he's going to be criticized by people who say you should have been looking out for self. You shouldn't have, and which, is interesting, right? Because the question becomes, and I'd be curious to know what you think on this. What should Dak have done, right? Should Dak, there are some people who might say you should have took $35 million for 5 years to take the guaranteed money. Then there are some people who say, no, you should have pushed for the money you wanted and just said, I'm not playing until I get the money I wanted, right? Yes. Which could cause other, consequences. What do you think Dak should have done? Do you think he should have took the money? Do you think he should have pushed and just said, I'm not stepping on the field and risking injury until you sign me for the money I want? Because everybody's going to armchair quarterback it, pun intended, right? Yeah. But what would you say, if you were Dak's advisor during his contract negotiations? What would you have told him to do? To do what he did or do something different?
Well, I can't be mad at Dak for trying to get the money that he felt like he deserved. But if, I'm not even going to necessarily say this if I was his advisor, but if I was Dak Prescott, I would have took that 35 over 5 years. And here's why. The reason why I would have took it, because like you said, Dak isn't the quarterback Deshaun Watson is. He isn't the quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is. So he needs more help because he is limited in certain capacities. He's not as talented, naturally talented as those other guys. Now he's talented. He's a good player, And 100 million lets you know you're talented. You know, you play the right position and you're pretty talented if you're going to get $100 million guaranteed. And so that's why I think he should have took it. Also, Dak Prescott plays for the #1 sports franchise in the world, not in North America, not in the NFL, in the world. The Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in the world. You can look it up, over the Yankees, over soccer teams over in Europe, over the Lakers, you know, over the Knicks, over everybody. They're a team in Dallas, Texas, is the #1 sports team in the world. So what comes with that? You get all of the commercials, commercial deals, advertisements, and you never have to pay for a lot of things. Say if you slip up and win a Super Bowl, you never have to pay for anything. Why do you think about all the major networks? Every major network that covers sports, or especially football, has what? Former Cowboys working for them. Whether it was Jason Witten when he worked for Monday Night Football, Troy Aikman is the head for Fox for all their primetime football games. Tony Romo is the head for CBS for all their primetime football games. Michael Irvin is on television, you know, on NFL Network. Deion Sanders, which is a former Cowboy, is on NFL Network was on NFL Network and did all the primetime. That is the luxury you get when you play for the Dallas Cowboys. Unlike anyone else, no other organization has cachet like the Cowboys, especially in the NFL world. Why? Because they have the #1 fan base. They're the most popular, and so therefore, all of these networks want former Cowboys to come work for them because they're going to connect with a certain demographic and a fan base that's going to get viewers. That's why every leading team has a Cowboy in the booth. Like, it's not by accident. That is by design. And think about it. Like, you can say Troy Aikman and Deion Sanders and Michael Irvin, they're Super Bowl champions, but Tony Romo didn't win nothing. He ain't never won anything.
Tony Romo ain't win shit. And I'm still mad at Romo when he messed up.
And he's the highest. Now, he's really good at his job. Don't get me wrong. He's really good at his job, but he has cashed that into $100 million deal as a broadcaster. Tony Romo makes $100 million as a broadcaster.
Wow, $100 million?
He's on $100 million deal. You can look it up and look up the exact number.
Wow.
CBS signed Romo to a $18 million a year, I think is the exact number. $18 million a year to be their lead broadcaster. I think it's the exact number. So yeah, that's what happens when you're good at your job and you play for the Dallas Cowboys. If he would have played for the Eagles or the Saints, I highly doubt he would have got that same opportunity. That's just my opinion. So I would have told Dak because Dak's on all the commercials now, whether it's him commercials with his brother, commercials with his, all these different people with Zeke. That's not by accident. It's because he plays for the star. He plays for the Cowboys. He plays for Jerry Jones. And those are the opportunities that just aren't afforded to everybody on every other team. So that's why I would have took that, cashed in my $35 million, cashed in my 10 to 12 to 20 million off the field because I play for Dallas, and worked it that way and try to go out and win a Super Bowl so you can cash in some more down the road.
Wow. Well, I love this, man, and I hate having to end the conversation. I'm 1 minute late for the financial Q&A we're about to do. I put the link in there, guys. If you're watching live, it's in there. You can click on that link and join us. I'm going to jump over to that webinar, but I want everybody. I saw some of you mentioning how smart Jeff is, and I'm going to tell you, he's very smart. He really knows sports extremely well. He reminds me of another guy that I used to work with, a guy named Nick. I don't have Nick's last. Nick Wright, who's at Fox Sports. Nick Wright used to be my producer back when I was at Syracuse. And I said, you're just like Nick, and you know sports like Nick, so he's going to be successful like Nick. So go follow Jeff. Look him up on Instagram. It's JLighty7. JLighty7. Look him up, and also on thebossportsnetwork.com, THE. That's thebossportsnetwork.com. So check that out. And he does commentary every day, and he's really good. And thank you guys for hanging out. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I got to bounce out of here to go to this thing, so I'm sorry to rush, guys. But thanks a lot, Jeff, man. Thanks for the briefing.
Thank you, Dr. Boyce. Always.
And keep me updated, man. If there are any other developments, I definitely want to talk more about this. So you guys have a good day. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.